Greetings world, we are anonymous. Subscribe. Share. Advertisement. The US is prepared to launch a preemptive strike with conventional weapons against North Korea should officials become convinced that North Korea is about to follow through with a nuclear weapons test, multiple senior US intelligence officials told NBC News. North Korea has warned that a big event is near, and US officials say signs point to a nuclear test that could come as early as this weekend. Play. Facebook Twitter embed. Exclusive, US considers possible strike to stop North Korea nuke test 2:54. The intelligence officials told NBC News that the US has positioned 2 destroyers capable of shooting Tomahawk cruise missiles in the region, one just 300 miles from the North Korean nuclear test site. American heavy bombers are also positioned in Guam to attack North Korea should it be necessary, and earlier this week, the Pentagon announced that the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier strike group was being diverted to the area. Related, Trump's options for North Korea include placing nukes in South Korea. The US strike could include missiles and bombs, cyber and special operations on the ground. The danger of such an attack by the US is that it could provoke the volatile and unpredictable North Korean regime to launch its own blistering attack on its southern neighbor. The leadership in North Korea has shown absolutely no sign or interest in diplomacy or dialogue with any of the countries involved in this issue, Victor Cha, the Korea chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies told NBC News Thursday. Play. Facebook Twitter embed. Exclusive, NSC presents President Trump with military options on North Korea 2:54. On Wednesday, North Korea said it would hit the US first with a nuclear weapon should there be any signs of US strikes. On Thursday, North Korea warned of a merciless retaliatory strike should the US take any action. Related, North Korea warns it would use nuclear weapons first if threatened. By relentlessly bringing in a number of strategic nuclear assets to the Korean peninsula, the US is gravely threatening the peace and safety and driving the situation to the brink of a nuclear war, said North Korea's statement. North Korea is not believed to have a deliverable long-range nuclear weapon, according to US experts, nor does it yet possess an intercontinental missile. Photos: North Korea prepares for holiday as tensions escalate. South Korea's top diplomat said today that the US would consult with Seoul before taking any serious measures. US officials, mindful of such concerns here, repeatedly reaffirmed that the US will closely discuss with South Korea its North Korea-related measures, Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se told a special parliamentary meeting. In fact, the US is working to reassure us that it will not, just in case that we might hold such concerns. US officials are aware of the risk. 2 things are coming together this weekend, said retired Admiral James Stavridis, former commander of NATO and an NBC analyst. One is the distinct possibility of a 6th North Korean nuclear weapons detonation, and the other is an American carrier strike group, a great deal of firepower headed right at the Korean peninsula. The US is aware that simply preparing an attack, even if it will only be launched if there is an imminent North Korean action, increases the danger of provoking a large conflict, multiple sources told NBC News. It's high stakes, a senior intelligence official directly involved in the planning told NBC News. We are trying to communicate our level of concern and the existence of many military options to dissuade the North first. It's a feat that we've never achieved before, but there is a new sense of resolve here, the official said, referring to the White House. Related, China proposes deal to ease tensions over North Korean missiles. The threat of a preemptive strike comes on the same day the US announced the use of its MOB, or mother of all bombs, in Afghanistan. attacking underground facilities, and on the heels of US missile strikes on a Syrian airbase last week, a strike that took place while President Trump was meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping at Mar-a-Lago. North Korean soldiers look towards Kim Jong-un at a parade in Pyongyang in 2013 marking the 60th anniversary of the Korean War armistice. Wang Mei, AP file. Multiple government officials familiar with the situation say President Trump has talked to Chinese President Xi twice about North Korea since their Florida summit. China has since sent its top nuclear negotiators to Pyongyang to communicate the gravity of the situation to the North, officials say. On Wednesday, President Xi called for a peaceful resolution to the escalating tensions. Moscow has weighed in as well. We are gravely concerned about Washington's plans regarding North Korea, considering hints about the unilateral use of a military scenario, the Putin government said in a press release issued on Tuesday. South Korea must sign off. Implementation of the preemptive U.S. plans, according to multiple U.S. officials, depends centrally on consent of the South Korean government. The sources stress that Seoul has got to be persuaded that action is worth the risk, as there is universal concern that any military move might provoke a North Korean attack, even a conventional attack across the DMZ. Tensions have escalated on the Korean peninsula, as this Saturday marks the anniversary of the birth of the nation's founder, Kim Il-sung, grandfather of the current leader, Kim Jong-un. At the highest levels in South Korea and the U.S., sources told NBC News, there are fears North Korea could mark the Day of the Sun by testing a nuclear device. North Korea in the past has used these major national holidays to celebrate the strengths of the regime and to reinforce the national narrative of their independence, says Cha. According to multiple sources, the U.S. intelligence community has reported with moderate confidence that North Korea is preparing for its sixth underground nuclear test, though the U.S. is also in the dark regarding the specific timing. Related, could North Korea hit Japan with sarin nerve gas missiles? The Trump administration, emboldened by their punishing strike on Syria, and by a successful meeting with the Chinese leader, hopes that the Chinese will use their considerable leverage to dissuade Kim Jong-un and his government from moving ahead with their nuclear program. President Trump has said he thinks Xi wants to help us with North Korea. He credited China during Thursday's White House news conference with Xi with taking a big step by turning back boats of coal that North Korea sells to China. A man mows grass under portraits of North Korean founder Kim Il-sung, left, and his son, Kim Jong-il, as people rehearse for an upcoming parade Kim Il-sung Square in central Pyongyang on April 12. Damir Sigalj, Reuters. I think that is what President Trump is trying to get the Chinese to do, said Cha. It would impose real pain and force real choices on North Korea, whether the costs are worth it for them to continue to pursue this program if they no longer have any sustenance. In addition to the coal ships, the Chinese made an important gesture at the UN Thursday. A surprising abstention on a Security Council resolution condemning a Syrian chemical weapons attack. China didn't stand with the Russians on Syria, as it has in the past. The president also made clear that if the Chinese were unable to defuse the situation, the US would go to alone. On Thursday, he tweeted, "I have great confidence that China will properly deal with North Korea. If they are unable to do so, the US and its allies will." William M. Arkin. Twitter mail. Cynthia McFadden. Kenzie Obsabe. Email. Topics: World, Investigations, Military, National Security, US News. First published April 13, 2017, 6:14 p.m. ET. Next story: Why America dropped mother of all bombs on ISIS in Afghanistan. By Tabula. Sponsored links. More to explore. 9 things people should never do before they retire. Business advice. Source.com. Free real estate event in Los Angeles May 8. 13 fortune builders. This may be the best home security system on the market. Live watch. 30 awesome inventions you may never hear about. Appers. News. April 14, 2017, 8:36 a.m. ET. Why America dropped mother of all bombs on ISIS in Afghanistan. By Alexander Smith. Share. Advertisement. 30 feet in length, weighing 21,000 pounds and creating a mushroom cloud seen up to 20 miles away, the mother of all bombs was unleashed by the United States in Afghanistan. It was the largest non-nuclear bomb ever dropped by the US military, so big that instead of being dropped by a conventional bomber it had to be pushed out of a cargo plane while attached to a parachute. But target of Thursday's strike was not Syria, North Korea or even America's old Afghan enemy, the Taliban, but ISIS. Play. Facebook Twitter embed. US military drops its largest non-nuclear bomb ever used in combat. 152. Afghanistan was not really on the agenda during Donald Trump's presidential campaign, but ISIS was, explained Emily Winterbottom, a research fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, a London-based think tank. Clearly Trump has decided that ISIS, whether it is in Iraq, Syria or Afghanistan, is something he is going after, she said. More than 1,500 miles from their stronghold in Iraq and Syria, militants affiliated with ISIS have been attempting to establish a foothold in the border region between Afghanistan and Pakistan, which for years has been a hotbed for other militant groups. Their numbers were initially bolstered by defectors from the Afghan Taliban who were disillusioned with their own leadership. They teamed up with jihadis from Pakistan, Chechnya and Uzbekistan to form a group sometimes referred to as ISIS Khorasan Province, or ISIS-K, named after a historical region in the country. But it has found itself under siege from NATO forces, the Afghan army and even the Taliban. Although both are enemies of America, the Taliban and ISIS fiercely oppose each other and have been locked in battles as they try to jockey for influence and territory. Afghan security forces take part in an ongoing operation against ISIS militants in the Arakan district of Afghanistan's Nangarhar province on Friday. Noor Orula Shirt Sada, AFP/Getty Images. Americans are directly involved in this fight. Just last week, Mark R. Dualen Carr, a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army, was killed while on an anti-ISIS operation in Nangarhar, the eastern province where ISIS is concentrated and where the U.S. carried out Thursday's bombing. ISIS Afghan numbers have waned for other reasons. Last year, the Taliban told NBC News that 6 senior ISIS commanders had left the group because it was simply too violent. Officials estimate there are currently between 700 and 1,500 ISIS fighters in Afghanistan, small fry compared with the Taliban's 25,000-strong force that controls or is fighting for a third of the country's territory. Nangarhar is a province in eastern Afghanistan. Google Maps. It is because of conflict with the Taliban, rather than ISIS, that much of the country remains in a chaotic state of conflict. 16 years after the US and its allies toppled the Taliban regime, civilian deaths are at record high levels, threatening the gains made during America's longest war. That's not to say ISIS Afghan offshoot isn't potent. Over the past 2 years, it has carried out a series of spectacular attacks on civilians and Afghan security forces. Last month, it claimed responsibility for an assault that saw militants disguise themselves as doctors and kill at least 30 people at a military hospital. On Thursday, the US carried out its most high-profile attack on the group, dropping the so-called mother of all bombs, whose real name is the GBU-43/B Massive Ordnance Air Blast Bomb, or MOB. Only 20 of these weapons have ever been made and each costs $16 million. According to website DGAL, which publishes information on military hardware. Play. Facebook Twitter embed. Trump calls bombing of ISIS target another successful mission. 137. It was originally designed as a non-nuclear deterrent against Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein, according to an article published in 2008 by Florida's Eglin Air Force Base. The GPS-guided bomb struck what the US said was a network of tunnels where ISIS fighters were hunkered down. The aim, according to the military, was to continue the rout of a degraded fighting force. As ISIS-K's losses have mounted, they are using IEDs, bunkers and tunnels to thicken their defense, said General John W. Nicholson, commander of America's forces in the country. This is the right munition to reduce these obstacles and maintain the momentum of our offensive against ISIS-K. The Afghan Ministry of Defense described the target as a very important base for ISIS and said it had been annihilated. It said 3 underground tunnels were destroyed, along with weapon and ammunition caches, and 36 ISIS fighters were killed with no loss of civilian life. The ISIS-affiliated news agency Amaq later denied that any of its fighters had been killed or injured. The GBU-43/B massive ordnance air blast bomb in an image provided by Eglin Air Force Base. Eglin Air Force Base via AP. U.S. forces took every precaution to avoid civilian casualties with this strike, Nicholson, the U.S. commander, added. The MOB was used in this instance because it is effective at targeting people who are hiding in tunnels or caves, according to experts. What it does is basically suck out all of the oxygen and lights the air on fire, Bill Royo, of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, told the Air Force Times. It's a way to get into areas where conventional bombs can't reach. Some commentators also wondered whether dropping the MOB was intended to send a message to North Korea, which is currently in an escalating war of words with the US and its allies. Asked about this Thursday, President Donald Trump said, "I don't know if this sends a message to North Korea," before appearing to dismiss the nuke test. We are anonymous. We are legions. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.